A sweet smile touches the corner of your lips. A gentle compliment slips out like a sword. They stand close to you, but their hands are empty. Behind their back, there might be a well-hidden knife. You don't see the traces at first. You only feel a light sense of trust. The manipulator doesn't resemble the classic villain. They don't shout or make noise. They wear the mask of friendliness. They are colleagues, friends, or lovers. They know how to make you feel safe. Then, little by little, they take control. You gradually lose your personal space. You change because of what they say. You wonder if that's really you. The subtlety of the game lies there. The modern manipulator is a master of concealment. They don't challenge you directly. They pull strings, sow doubt, twist meanings. A whisper can undermine your credibility. A smile can shift an entire relationship. The problem is you don't know it first. How do you recognize it? How do you protect yourself? The answer lies in understanding the game. And no one understood the game of power better than Machiavelli. He didn't just talk about violence. He observed how people control emotions. Machiavelli taught to look at motives and outcomes. He taught strategy over emotion. In today's world, that's more important than ever. Today's manipulators are more sophisticated than ever. They hide motives behind kindness. They manipulate emotions so you hand over control to yourself. Understanding the tactics is the first step to immunity. It's not about being cold and heartless. It's about deliberate awareness. You can learn to observe more. You can learn to stay silent at the right moment. You can learn to turn praise into information. Start with the smallest things. Have you ever been controlled by someone without realizing it? If so, write down one experience. We'll use that experience to learn. Number 1. The origin of control, the art of feigned ignorance. The first tactic is deliberate feigned ignorance. This is not genuine stupidity. It is a strategy for gathering information. The manipulator casts bait to provoke your reaction. They want you to reveal emotions. They want you to voice your weaknesses. When you react, they log every detail. Your reaction becomes their fuel. If you don't react, they expose themselves. They start talking more to fill the silence. They will brag, fabricate, or outline plans. Every word they say is a piece of evidence. Feigned ignorance makes them drop their guard. They believe you're oblivious to the game. That belief makes them reveal themselves naturally. Those who understand this collect data in silence. That data helps you infer true motives. You avoid rushing into confrontation and losing the upper hand. Psychology explains this clearly. People want to control relationships. Manipulators use words to dominate. They gauge reactions to adjust tactics. A strong reaction gives them power. Deliberate silence unsettles them. Discomfort leads to excessive talking. Excessive talking creates mistakes. Those mistakes are undeniable evidence. That is the core of the play dumb tactic. Now, a real-life example. You have a colleague named Mary. Mary is overly friendly all the time. She constantly asks about your project. She praises your work. One day, she shares a tragic story. She asks you to share critical resources. You could react immediately with concern, or you choose silence and observation. You ask a few simple, non-suspicious questions. You let Mary talk without interrupting. Mary details meetings and manipulation tactics. Mary reveals who opposed her ideas. Mary inadvertently mentions plans to redirect information. You memorize every detail for later. You don't judge, condemn, or expose. You gather information for leverage. A week later, Mary reveals her true goal. She wants to use your materials for her promotion. You have evidence from her own words. When needed, you deploy that data coldly. You don't need to accuse with high drama. You simply present selectively chosen facts. The difference lies in your patience. Feigned ignorance requires great patience. It demands emotional control. It is not blind tolerance. It is a proactive self-defense strategy. This skill starts with intentional listening. Mentally note every statement they make. Ask open but neutral questions. Avoid emotional reactions or speaking too soon. Keep your facial expression unrevealing. Store information for later analysis. When you act, base it on evidence. Don't let emotions drive decisions. Remember, the goal is information, not enmity. When you go public, do it with data. Let others see the clear picture. Don't make yourself look like a vengeful lunatic. Smart manipulation is making them expose themselves. Finally, practice balancing conversational volume. Know when to stay silent and when to probe. If you've ever chosen silence and won, share. Leave an emoji so I know your story. Number 2, controlling the narrative. Those who control words control reality. Manipulators thrive on chaos and rumors. They plant information to blur the portrait of truth. When everything is messy, they win. When you defend yourself, they smirk inwardly. The Machiavellian solution is to control the narrative, not panicked reactions, but redefining the frame. Whoever defines the frame decides the conclusion. Those who control words control reality. Think like a scriptwriter. You don't just defend yourself. You produce information with intent. Step 1 is strategic silence. Step 2 is shifting the storytelling frame. The slanderer wants you to become the character. They need your reaction to keep the story alive. When you stay silent, they have to create drama themselves. When you reframe, you control the perspective. Real-world examples happen everywhere. A rumor surfaces in the company. You could speak up to protect your reputation, or you could redirect the story's focus. Instead of explaining, ask bigger questions. Speak with a calm demeanor. A simple response like this: there are different opinions on this matter. We need to look at the actual results. You don't justify minor mistakes. You shift focus to performance and value. Listeners will compare the two frames. The one who appears calm gains more credibility. Lengthy explanations make you look weak. People assume the explainer is hiding something. Machiavelli spoke of perception. Truth doesn't win when perception is lost. Power lies in how people perceive. So define your opponent as the rattled one. When they attack, turn the attack into a sign. Say the aggression shows you're a threat. Casually note that you draw attention. Claim the attacker fears being overshadowed. This phrasing turns fault into merit. Listeners start questioning the attacker's motives. They wonder why someone needs to attack. You don't need to expose secret details. You just build the frame, the strong face opposition. In public, restraint is a weapon. Don't try to clear your name at all costs. Don't feed more fuel to the rumor monger. Manipulators rely on your reactions. When you give none, they lose momentum. Prepare with concise messages. One clear sentence outweighs pages of explanation. Craft positioning statements before you need them. Talk about value, goals, and results. Highlight achievements instead of arguing. Tell a bigger story about your vision. Every petty attack becomes meaningless. When necessary, present evidence calmly. Use concise numbers and documents. Numbers don't invite emotional manipulation. Present the data, then go silent. Few words but heavyweight. That is the strategy for redefining reality. Another subtle tip is building allies in advance. When your network is strong, rumors struggle to spread. Credible people will echo your frame. They help define the story naturally. Invest in credibility over instant reactions. A calm attitude reduces the audience's emotions. People trust those who stay composed. They borrow the calm person's lens. So practice tone and body language. One slow, clear sentence shifts perception. When the dust settles, few remember angry words. They remember your lasting impression. Machiavelli taught that perception is the primary weapon. You don't win with emotional transparency. You win by mastering the image. Prepare for every scenario in advance. Think of a few ways to reframe when attacked. Write short, sharp responses beforehand. Practice speaking little, but with force. Recognize when to withdraw and when to speak. Speaking isn't to address every accusation. Speaking is to reset the story's headline. Have you ever lost by explaining too much? If so, share a brief experience in the comments. Your story can wake others up. Number 3, Divide and sow doubt. Let enemies destroy each other. Small groups are fertile ground for manipulators. They build alliances on uncertainty. Those alliances are often fragile and prone to cracks. A single whisper is enough to fracture the group. This tactic is called divide and sow doubt. The goal isn't to destroy everyone. The goal is to collapse the connections between them. When they doubt each other, coordination falls apart. The manipulator loses their greatest asset, the alliance. You don't need direct attacks. You can proactively plant small seeds of doubt. A well-timed question can shift dynamics. A compliment to the right person can spark envy. Praise to prick someone else's ego. Strategic silence is another blow. Silence makes others question your motives. When doubt takes root, they start self-protecting. Self-protection reduces their ability to coordinate. In the workplace, this technique is highly effective. Suppose there's an advisory group at the company. One member constantly lurks and manipulates. They share information behind others' backs. You don't need to accuse them immediately. You can publicly praise someone else. The praise focuses on real competence. The praised person naturally draws more attention. The others start wondering why. The new attention shakes old alliances. The manipulator temporarily loses status. They start showing off to regain their position. When they show off, they expose flaws and goals. Others in the group begin to doubt. Natural doubt peels apart the bonds. You don't need to say anything bad about them. You simply redirect the group's energy. This strategy demands high subtlety. Praise must be genuine and purposeful. Silence must be intentional, not cold indifference. The aim is to make them self-expose, not a direct accusation. When they contradict themselves, others see the issue. When the issue is clear, you have social proof. Social proof is stronger than personal accusations. A circle of people who trust you will back you. Thus, building relationships beforehand is essential. Work to make group members familiar with you. When needed, they'll see you as a reliable source. Division emerges naturally as competition rises. You just help the process happen at the right time. It's crucial to maintain ethics in your actions. Don't turn the strategy into subtle bullying. Machiavelli praised strategy, not senseless destruction. Use division to protect, not to ruin others. Always be prepared to own the consequences. This tactic requires calculation and calm. Don't let emotions override when sowing doubt. Sowing doubt only works with good restraint. When the alliance crumbles, you don't need to fight. They'll harm themselves trying to reinforce. You gain by staying calm and clear-headed. Do you think silence is sometimes a stronger divider than words? If you agree, share a brief thought in the comments. Number 4. Exposing without accusing, the power of suggestion. Direct words can backfire. Sometimes silence is the wiser weapon. The 4th tactic is exposing without accusing. The purpose is to let the truth reveal itself. You make them expose themselves with questions and eye contact. This is the art of leaking truth. No need for shouting or public accusations. Just one well-timed question. A question that forces them to revise their words. Or a question that reveals a contradiction. Body language is a powerful ally. A calm but steady gaze. A stare lasting a few seconds carries weight. It makes the speaker pause and reconsider. Silence can last just a few seconds. And in those seconds, they may self-expose. Machiavelli believed in subtle pressure. He used small actions to control situations. Open but directed questions. For example, ask someone about a minor detail. A detail they weren't prepared to address. They will hedge or alter the story. The alteration is evidence to observers. You simply wait and watch the reaction. When they add more, they create contradictions. Others in the room start to sense it. They connect the scattered pieces. You don't need to point fingers or name names. You let the group witness the inconsistency. The result is doubt planted naturally. Now, a short story about a leader. In a meeting room, a subordinate tells a story. The story aims to hide a serious mistake. The leader listens with an expressionless face. He doesn't ask immediately. He holds silence for exactly 3 seconds. Those 3 seconds create tension in the room. The subordinate starts revising the account. The account becomes more tangled than before. Others begin exchanging glances. A junior employee mentions an additional detail. That detail unintentionally contradicts the original claim. The truth emerges without accusation. The leader then asks one gentle question. The question is enough to direct attention to the contradiction. He doesn't need to shout or insult. The meeting room clarifies the inconsistency itself. That is the power of suggestion and silence. You can use this technique in many situations. When someone talks too much, stay silent. When they contradict themselves, ask one question. Ask to clarify, not to condemn. Ask so the group can reason and conclude on its own. Maintain calm and avoid manipulation. The goal is to allow truth to surface, not to play personal retaliation. This technique requires patience and calculation. You need to gauge others' reactions. You need awareness of the social context. A question at the wrong time can backfire. So practice in safe situations. Train your eye contact and body language. Practice holding silence for a few seconds. Learn to ask open but directed questions. Remember, you don't need to attack anyone. You only need to make the truth appear. When the truth appears, power shifts. The manipulator has nowhere to hide. They are exposed in front of everyone. You maintain credibility by acting calmly. You don't become the aggressor or the resentful one. You are simply the observer who asks questions. Have you ever exposed someone without saying a word? If so, share a brief experience in the comments. Number 5. When silence becomes a weapon. Silence is not timidity. Silence is a purposeful strategy. Manipulators live off the victim's reactions. They assess every small gesture. Each reaction is fuel for them. When you react, they gain more power. When you stay silent, they lose their bait. Silence unsettles them. They're no longer sure how to steer. That unease makes them reveal more. Silence creates a dangerous void for them. They try to fill it with words. And when they talk too much, mistakes appear. One overreach can expose their motive. That's why silence holds value. Calculated silence is a tool of power. It turns the manipulator into one short on data. Those around start asking questions. They piece together the fragments themselves. You just sit there and observe. Keep your face composed. Don't let your eyes betray emotion. Breathe deeply before speaking. Sometimes a faint smile is enough. A smile can freeze them in place. When they expect a reaction, silence is the blow. Example in a workplace argument. The manipulator yells to provoke you. You simply smile and stay silent. The silence builds tension in the room. They start speaking faster and more chaotically. Colleagues suddenly see the absurdity. In the end, the manipulator loses control. They reveal their true intent. You don't need to attack or shout. You just let silence do the work. Machiavelli spoke of the power of saying little. The quiet one makes the crowd question itself. Silence creates mystery and authority. When others can't read you, they stop controlling. Unpredictability makes them wary. Silence also preserves energy. You don't waste emotion on their game. You keep power for when it counts. Silence helps you gather more information. You hear more when your mouth is closed. You watch tone and body language. Those details become evidence later. When you choose to act, use facts. Action rooted in silence carries more weight. The audience trusts the one who restrains emotion. Restraint builds credibility and influence. However, silence must be applied skillfully. Silence at the wrong time can be misread. Sometimes silence is seen as complicity. So combine silence with action. Know when to stay quiet and when to speak. Silence isn't always the answer. Prepare your strategy before withdrawing. Practice staying calm in tense situations. Train your gaze and composed demeanor. Try silence in small meetings first. Observe others' reactions when you stay quiet. Note who speaks more and reveals information. Then use that information deftly. Silence paired with evidence is a cold weapon. It makes no noise but is highly effective. You make the manipulator self-destruct. You preserve your dignity and reputation. You don't need hostility or violence. You win with clarity and calculation. Do you have the patience to let others speak first? If so, share a brief experience in the comments. Number 6. Making the manipulator dependent. Power can reverse through dependency. When someone needs you, they lose the initiative. That's the logic of making them dependent. The goal isn't to seize, but to create leverage. You turn your value into a lever. First, identify what they can't do themselves. It could be specialized knowledge, or a network only you have, or a skill for handling a specific issue. When you provide value, they feel indebted. That debt becomes a source of reverse power. But value must be given with clear limits. Give too much and you hand them control. Give too little and dependency doesn't form. To get it right, give just enough and at the right time. Help them succeed, but don't give them everything. Once they're used to relying on you, create distance. Turn assistance into a conditional resource. Appear occasionally, then vanish. Deliberate inconsistency makes them anxious. Anxiety increases how often they seek you. The more they seek you, the more you control. They'll adjust their behavior to avoid losing you. They'll shield you publicly more than before. They'll praise you for their own gain. The manipulator gets flipped when they need you. They have less freedom to manipulate. They fear losing benefits if you pull away. So they must play by your rules. Execution requires careful preparation. Start by delivering clear value. Track every support you've given. Don't let help become taken for granted. Attach reasonable conditions. For example, set deadlines for loaned resources. Require reports on achieved results. These conditions turn help into control. Once dependent, you gain room to maneuver. You can request subtle behavior changes. You can demand more honesty. You can reduce support when needed. Withdrawing support must be done coldly. Don't over-explain when pulling back. A short decision carries more force than long arguments. They'll feel the loss and try to reclaim it. That's when you introduce new terms. They accept rather than openly resist. Concrete example in a partnership setting. You have a business partner named Bin. Bin thinks he controls the negotiation process. You provide a strategic client network. You help him close major contracts. Gradually, Bin relies on you to seal deals. When you become less available, results suffer. Bin grows anxious about profits. He comes to you for urgent help. In that position, you set clear conditions. Demand transparency on contracts and commissions. Require changes in reporting to you. Bin agrees because he can't replace the resource. Your power rises in practical terms. You don't need to demean or publicly expose. You simply control the resource they need. This tactic requires ethics and consideration. Don't turn others into emotional slaves. The aim is to protect interests, not torment people. Always weigh the social consequences. Dependency can break relationships. Prepare an exit plan if things spiral. Maintain internal transparency with yourself. Ask if you're protecting or exploiting. If the intent is protection, the tactic is valid. If it's revenge, you've fallen into an ethical trap. Practice conditional giving. Train setting limits without breeding resentment. Monitor their reactions to adjust strategy. Once dependent, you can guide the process. You use power to create safety for yourself. You don't use it to destroy a person. You gain power while keeping self-respect. Have you ever made someone dependent on you? If so, share a brief experience in the comments. Number 7. Using their own weapons. Silent counterstrikes. Manipulators weaponize emotions. They want your instant reaction. Your reaction is their raw material. The 7th tactic is silent counterstrikes. Use their own weapons against them. Smile when they lie. Be polite when they apply pressure. Politeness unsettles them. They expect hostility to trigger. When you're polite, their familiar script breaks. They don't know the next move. Psychology calls it pattern disruption. People need patterns to manipulate. When the pattern shifts, they lose control. Unpredictability forces their mistakes. They overperform to regain power. Overperformance leads to verbal slips. Slips become evidence. You don't need noise to collect evidence. Composure is a discrete method. It makes the manipulator self-expose. Practice this in communication. First, maintain a soft smile. The smile must be natural, not forced. It shows you're unshaken. Second, use polite phrases. Short, respectful, and calm statements. Say thank you when appropriate. Thanks catches them off guard. They don't expect kindness. Kindness flips the game to your side. Third, respond with gentle questions. Questions force them to elaborate. Elaboration can reveal contradictions. You gather intel without attacking. Fourth, use deliberate small behaviors. For example, a light nod when they speak. For example, steady, calm eye contact. Small gestures create subtle pressure. They self-correct their narrative. Corrections expose weaknesses. An example in a business meeting. A colleague tries to smear you. You don't react aggressively. You smile and ask one question. The question makes them say more. In saying more, they contradict themselves. Other colleagues spot the error. The manipulator's attack collapses. You retain credibility and calm. No one sees you as a weak defender. Instead, they see self-control. Your composure makes you look reliable. The manipulator looks unhinged to others. That's the moment you gain the edge. Importantly, avoid arrogance. Composure isn't the same as arrogance. Maintain respect for everyone. You don't become the resentful one. The goal is self-exposure, not humiliation. A subtle strategy takes time. You must train calm reflexes. Practice in low-stakes situations. Track others' reactions to your silence. Mentally note small details. Use those details when needed. When you respond with facts, it lands heavy. Facts reduce their room. Politeness plus facts is a strong combo. Avoid public insults. Insults turn the audience against you. Politeness keeps the audience engaged. Politeness makes neutrals view you favorably. The manipulator gets isolated without an audience. No audience, no power for the manipulator. Balance action and silence. Sometimes speak clearly with evidence. Sometimes silence and observation suffice. Decide based on long-term goals. You want respect, not just a momentary win. Remember Machiavelli on perception. Perception determines power more than isolated truth. When perception favors you, the manipulator is exposed. You craft perception with intentional behavior. Composure is a powerful perception tool. It signals you're hard to manipulate. You become elusive and less attacked. Finally, maintain dignity in counterstrikes. Wise power doesn't come from aggression. Smart power comes from calculation and calm. Have you ever made someone lose their composure just with your calm? Number 8. Creating an aura of power, the art of controlling presence. Power stems from how you carry yourself. It's not in the volume of your voice. It lives in the rhythm of your entrance. It shows in your eyes and breath. Someone with presence makes others hesitate. Presence is a powerful nonverbal language. The goal here is to master presence. When you control presence, you're harder to manipulate. First is the speed of movement. Rushing looks like a lack of control. Slow walking signals certainty. Deliberate, measured steps convey power. Practice walking evenly and lightly. When entering a room, slow down a beat. Pausing in the right spot is key. A well-placed pause can silence the room. It draws attention. Next is voice and speaking pace. Speaking slowly gives words weight. A slower pace reduces their manipulation room. A calm tone conveys safety. Practice slow speech daily in front of a mirror. Next is eye contact. Hold gaze without rapid blinking. Direct eye contact signals fearlessness. A few seconds on one person creates pressure, but avoid staring to the point of discomfort. Balance firmness with respect. A composed face is essential. Avoid rapid expression changes. Emotional stability makes you unpredictable. Unpredictability unsettles others. It's a protective tool. Body energy also sends messages. Don't hunch or fidget. Breathe evenly to maintain rhythm and calm. Relaxed core deepens the voice. An open but firm posture works best. Shoulders down but spine straight. Sit solidly in meetings. Stand grounded when addressing crowds. Small gestures must be intentional. Place your hands on the table gently. No wild waving while speaking. Every gesture should support your words. Restraint creates a sense of power. Power doesn't need display to exist. A timely small smile holds value. It eases tension and builds connection. But the smile must be genuine and purposeful. Too frequent, it loses impact. The ability to stay silent is part of presence. Silence at the right moment gives later words weight. Those who speak little but are timely are heard more. Practice brief silences in conversation. A short pause makes the following words resonate. When speaking, choose short, firm sentences. Concise language creates lasting influence. Prepare phrasing before critical situations. Write a few lines you'll use if needed. Rehearse pronunciation and rhythm in the mirror. Preparation helps maintain presence. Presence is also tied to daily appearance. Appropriate attire signals power. Neat clothing conveys professionalism. Don't let your dress invite judgment. Small details build big impressions. Clean shoes, groomed hair, minimal accessories. Each detail reinforces your image. A stable personal space helps too. A tidy desk signals control. Your surroundings affect perception. Maintain consistency between behavior and image. People trust clear alignment. Finally, presence is a trainable skill. It's not just innate talent. You can change habits step by step. Start by walking one beat slower. Practice holding eye contact for a few seconds daily. Spend minutes practicing slow speech in the mirror. Track how others react to your changes. Note moments you create influence. Gradually, your presence becomes natural. When power feels natural, you're less manipulated. Others think twice before interfering. You become harder to control. What do you think makes someone the hardest to manipulate? Number 9. Let them win the small battles, so you claim the big one. Winning small battles can sometimes be a strategy. Manipulators celebrate minor victories. They gain confidence and complacency. Complacency lowers their guard. That's when you set a subtle trap. This tactic is called yielding to win. The goal is to let them feel in control. When they believe they're winning, they act differently. They grow bolder and more rigid. They brag and reveal plans. You use that complacency to plan your next move. Not every concession is a weakness. Sometimes it's a calculated strategy. Imagine a clever student. The student reveres the teacher as an authority figure. The teacher always sees himself as superior. The student lets the teacher win a few small rounds. The more the teacher wins, the more he trusts his judgment. The student quietly gathers information. The student learns the teacher's habits and weaknesses. Then, when the moment arrives, the student acts deftly. The student unveils an idea bigger than the teacher expected. The teacher can't respond in time due to overconfidence. This story doesn't endorse deceit. It illustrates a patient, calculated strategy. In the workplace, the same approach works. You yield some credit to a colleague. They feel reinforced in their position. They continue acting as the leader. You silently perfect a larger plan. When the project is complete, you present evidence. The other person lacks leverage to counter. Publicly, you deliver the decisive blow with force. The audience sees the clear value difference. The manipulator's position flips gently. This strategy works because perception matters. Others trust the confident one with little doubt. When confidence is misplaced, the fallout is heavier. Yielding requires art and planning. You can't concede randomly. Choose small battles to yield. Small ones that don't harm the big goal. At the same time, the yield must feel like a real win. The fake victory must breed enough complacency. You need to control the timing of your quiet withdrawal. Withdrawing when they least expect creates maximum surprise. When delivering the decisive strike, ensure clear evidence. Don't act on emotion or anger. Action must be calculated and prepared. Prepare data, witnesses, and launch timing. Act smoothly but with thorough impact. The goal is dominance without noise. When people calmly analyze, they see you're right. The manipulator is isolated in surprise. They can't counter convincingly. Yielding to win needs ethics and clear limits. Don't use this tactic to scam others. The aim is self-protection, not unethical gain. Ask yourself about your long-term goal. If the goal is legitimate, the strategy can be valid. If it's just revenge, stop. Sustainable victory comes from credibility and results. Yielding to win is one step in the larger game. You orchestrate small steps toward the objective. This way, you control the game's pace. You give the opponent false security. When they show their hand, you play the winning move. The result? They lose audience and credibility. You take the position they thought was secure. Outsiders remember the outcome more than the arguments. This strategy demands extraordinary patience. It also requires self-control and no rushing. Practice by focusing on long-term outcomes. Learn to choose battles to yield wisely. See what the real strategic benefit is. When you master this art, you're less likely to be outmaneuvered. You become more strategic than emotional. Do you believe yielding is sometimes the fastest way to win? Number 10. Advanced tactics. Blend in, redefine power. There are more advanced tactics to complete the strategy. First is detaching emotions from actions. Emotional detachment means not reacting emotionally. When you stay calm, others lose their manipulation fuel. They need reactions to feed their narrative. No reaction controls their emotions. You're not numb, you choose how to behave. This clarity makes decisions more pragmatic. Second is the tactic of isolation and replacement. Isolation and replacement aren't about destroying people. The goal is to make them unnecessary. You don't confront directly, you build alternatives. When others see you as more useful, they lose ground. Instead of digging up flaws, create substitutes. The manipulator becomes redundant in the community's eyes. This is a long-term strategy with deep impact. Third is purposeful kindness. Weaponized kindness is giving with limits. You offer to build conditional trust. Kindness lowers their guard and reveals more. When they rely on it, you gather intel. Then quietly reduce support. The loss forces behavior shifts. Calculated kindness is soft power. Fourth is calculated absence. Tactical unavailability turns disappearance into a signal. Not random coldness, but timed. When you're less present, they lack data. Absence breeds anxiety and errors. They reach out more and expose themselves. Disappearing at the right moment is a silent warning. Others reassess your position. Finally, it is power minimalism. Minimalism of power means speaking little, but forcefully. Fewer words, fewer chances of distortion. Selective language adds weight to each sentence. Speak with facts, not overt emotion. People trust those who measure and stay silent. Sparse but sharp words build a strong perception. Combining these creates a system. Emotional detachment keeps you from getting pulled in. Isolation and replacement break bad alliances. Weaponized kindness exposes when they need benefits. Tactical unavailability disrupts their control rhythm. Minimalism of power solidifies credibility and influence. You don't need brute force to win. You use a strategy to tilt the game. Apply each tactic contextually. Don't use them all chaotically at once. Choose the tool for the long-term goal. Note every reaction to refine the strategy. Check social impact before acting. Always maintain ethics in every move. Don't use tactics to abuse others. The aim is defense and preserving dignity. If you overreach, you lose long-term credibility. Practice these skills in safe environments. Start with small situations to train. Keep a reaction journal to analyze effectiveness. Learn to switch between silence and action. Ask yourself, does this tactic serve the goal? And always assess relational consequences. Now your turn. one short sentence. Which tactic do you think scares manipulators the most? Number 11. When manipulators destroy themselves. Machiavelli stared straight into the nature of power. He said manipulators don't fear confrontation. They fear something far greater. They fear public exposure. When the mask falls, they have nowhere to hide. Exposure is the most effective punishment. And you can make it happen. Not by shouting or accusing, but by deliberate non-reaction. When you don't explain, you deny them a platform. When you don't justify, they lose material to twist. When you don't salvage, the audience starts to see for itself. Manipulators need an audience to wield power. They need believers to stay convincing. If the audience goes quiet, they isolate themselves. The collapse happens gradually and coldly. That is the most Machiavellian form of punishment. Now, a short but typical story. Anna was once the target of a manipulator, a colleague with fake friendliness. He whispered, praised, and asked for help. Step by step, he seized a small influence in the group. Anna gradually lost her voice in meetings. Her proposals were subtly dismissed. Everyone trusted his diplomatic smile. Anna noticed, but didn't rush to fight back. She remembered lessons on silence and observation. She listened longer, took careful notes. She didn't argue in front of colleagues. She didn't accuse or make a noise to resist. Instead, she prepared small steps. She collected evidence from his own words. She noted contradictions in meetings. She quietly built credibility through actions. She delivered high-quality work. She helped a few people see the value. The colleague found he needed her more. The line between them began to shift. One day, he boasted loudly in the meeting room. When he bragged about contributions, Anna just smiled. She didn't counter, she let him continue. The more he spoke, the more contradictions surfaced. Another colleague suddenly recalled a wrong detail. People started asking simple questions. Small questions, enough to connect the pieces. He had nothing left to defend his words. The mask slipped before everyone's eyes. Exposure came without drama. It arrived as a series of small realizations. Anna didn't need to shout or accuse. The power she gained was calm power. The manipulator collapsed in the public frame. When the mask falls, others handle the rest. They don't want to side with the deceiver. That is the strength of strategic silence. The big lesson here is clear. Don't rush when facing manipulation. Don't let emotion drive your actions. Choosing silence can be the strongest path. Silence is the test that shakes manipulators. It forces them to seek other resources to breathe. When those resources run dry, they reveal weaknesses. When weaknesses appear, social justice runs itself. People want to stand with transparency. They distance themselves from identified fakes. This strategy isn't harmless. It requires patience and careful calculation. You must gather evidence discreetly. You must preserve dignity when things break. You must prepare for possible social fallout. But when done right, the result is convincing. You don't win with anger and noise. You win with clarity and time. Machiavelli taught that perception decides victory. When perception shifts, power instantly redirects. And the manipulator finds no ground left. Now I ask you once more, will you use silence as a deliberate weapon? Conclusion. We've covered 9 key tactics. Each is a piece of the power system. Feign ignorance to gather intel. Redefine the narrative instead of long explanations. Divide to collapse bad alliances. Expose subtly without accusations. Use silence as a purposeful weapon. Make them need you, then control. Counter with their own tools quietly. Master presence to stay unmanipulable. Yield small battles to win the big one. Advanced tips strengthen long-term strategy. Detach emotions from actions as the foundation. Isolate and replace to render them redundant. Calculated kindness lowers their guard. Strategic absence is a strong warning. Speak little but with weight, it's an art. All of this requires patience. It demands careful observation and calculation. Power isn't about aggression or noise. Power is the ability to control yourself. True strength lies not in controlling others, but in ensuring no one can control you. When you don't react, you don't hand them power. When you speak little, your words carry more value. When you create a dependency, the opponent loses manipulation freedom. Machiavelli taught that perception is the real battlefield. Truth only wins if perception is on your side. Aim for long-term goals over instant wins. Don't let emotions dictate your strategy. Act on evidence, not feelings. Preserve dignity when wielding power. Smart power doesn't strip your humanity. Always weigh the ethical fallout of tactics. Use strategy to protect, not destroy. Practice these skills in safe settings. Log experiences to refine future responses. Share stories to wake the community. Will you stay a victim or become the reader? Leave a comment and share this video to spread awareness. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.